I want you to cast your mind back to the last time you tried to learn something completely new from scratch as an adult.
Oh, that is always a humbling experience.
Right, like maybe you were trying to pick up a new language for a trip, or you were staring down some complicated piece of enterprise software you just had to master for your job.
Yeah, the mandatory training stuff.
Exactly. Do you remember that specific, really heavy feeling of dread when you realized you just had to sit down and memorize a giant list of rules?
Oh, absolutely.
It's that sinking feeling of essentially being assigned homework.
Well, the brain actually throws up an immediate wall when that happens. We are, like, biologically wired to resist rote memorization when it lacks context.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, if there is no immediate utility, no emotional resonance, and frankly, no joy in the process, our cognitive systems just treat that incoming information as noise.
Which is why you can read the same software manual paragraph like 3 times and retain absolutely nothing.
Exactly. You're just reading words, not actually learning.
And that universal resistance is exactly what we are tackling today. Welcome to episode 2 of our deep dive series.
I am really excited about this one.
Me too. We have a fascinating stack of source material for you today, originating from an educational game developer called Bornfab.
Right. We're looking at 2 of their internal product playbooks today.
Yeah, so the first is this broad philosophical document called the Bornfab Game Design Principles. And the second is a highly specific design document for a game they call Weight Balance.
And our mission for this deep dive is to uncover a completely different approach to the way human beings learn.
It's really a total paradigm shift.
It is. We are unpacking a methodology where discovery entirely replaces direct instruction. We're looking at an environment where complex, abstract reasoning, specifically mathematical reasoning, isn't built through digital worksheets, but through this concept they call invisible play.
I am so obsessed with that phrase, invisible play.
It's a great term.
And we're going to frame this not just as a, niche discussion about how to entertain a 7-year-old on an iPad, but really as a masterclass in how any human being absorbs complex information when they are genuinely engaged.
Because the stakes are high, honestly.
Right. If these principles can convince a kid to voluntarily teach themselves algebra, the implications for how you and I learn new skills or how we train our teams at work, they're massive.
So let's get into it. The foundational premise of the Bornfab game design principles, it makes a very aggressive distinction right on page 1.
Okay, let's unpack this. What do they say?
They state that the goal of their games is never to deliver information.
Wait, really? Never?
Never. The goal is to create experiences that naturally develop stronger thinking. They draw this hard line between the act of knowing things and the act of thinking well.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about traditional education. Like, I can easily know that 6 times 7 is 42 because I memorized some rhyme about it in the 3rd grade.
Right, you just remember the song.
Exactly, but that does not mean I actually possess any underlying intuition about how multiplication functions in the physical world. I just memorized a vocal pattern.
You memorize the output, not the mechanism.
Right.
And Bornfab's design philosophy hinges on a very strict rule to avoid that exact scenario.
And what's the rule?
Well, before a game even goes into development, the team has to answer one question. Would a child choose to play this game on a Saturday morning, even if nobody asked them to?
Wow. That is an insanely high bar for an educational product.
It really is.
Because usually when I look at the landscape of so-called educational games, they operate more like a PDF textbook hiding inside a digital slot machine.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they rely on this terrible bait and switch. It's like chocolate-covered broccoli.
Oh, totally.
You have to solve a boring multiple-choice math problem, and as a reward for suffering through the math, your little cartoon frog gets to jump over a log and some confetti explodes on the screen.
Right, the reward is totally disconnected.
Exactly. The jumping frog and the confetti have absolutely nothing to do with the math. The game is just trying to bribe you into doing a digital worksheet.
Well, the Bornfab playbook explicitly outlaws that exact design pattern.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, they have an entire section detailing what a Bornfab game can never be. They ban digital worksheets. They ban quizzes disguised as interactive media.
That is so refreshing.
And they absolutely forbid endless, mindless tapping, gambling mechanics, and any of those addictive design techniques that try to maximize a child's screen time at the expense of their actual cognitive well-being.
So no digital slot machines?
None. The learning must be woven so deeply into the physical mechanics of the digital world that To the child, it is indistinguishable from play. It's just invisible.
I love the ambition. I really do, but I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
If you strip away the quizzes and the game never explicitly pauses to say, hey, here is the mathematical rule you need to learn today, how does the learning actually happen?
That's the big question.
Right. If you just drop a kid into a digital sandbox without instructions, aren't you just guaranteeing they will, click around randomly until something flashes?
That is the defining trap of lazy game design. And Bornfab relies on a core philosophy to avoid it. They call it curiosity before instruction.
Curiosity before instruction.
Yeah. They completely invert the traditional teacher-student dynamic.
How so?
Instead of the software acting as an authority figure that dictates, here is the rule, now practice it, the environment is designed to subtly provoke the player into thinking, let's figure out how this world works.
Give me a way to visualize that shift, because curiosity before instruction sounds great on a bumper sticker, but how does it function in practice?
Think about the difference between driving a car using a GPS versus exploring a new city using a compass and landmarks.
Okay, I follow.
Traditional learning is the GPS. It tells you exactly when to turn left, when to turn right, and you eventually arrive at your destination.
Right, but you aren't really paying attention to the route.
Exactly. If your GPS dies, you are completely lost because you never built a mental map of the city. You just blindly followed instructions.
That is a great analogy.
So Bornfab's approach is taking away the GPS. You might take a few wrong turns at first, but through your own trial and error, you organically discover how the streets connect.
Does you have to?
Right. And when you discover the rule yourself, it becomes permanently hardwired into your brain because you understand the why behind the layout, not just the what.
So the goal isn't to force feed them the map, but to teach them how to navigate.
Yes.
And the playbook actually codifies this. They call it building a player's thinking DNA.
Principle 9. Exactly.
They argue that no game should exist purely to fill a content quota. Like, you don't build a fractions game just because you need a fractions game. Every game must exist to develop specific psychological traits.
They outline a master list of 10 distinct traits they want to engineer into their players.
Which are?
Things like being curious, observant, thoughtful, persistent, logical, creative, adaptable, independent.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Oh, sure.
Because when I first read through that list of traits in the source material, my alarm bells went off.
Why is that?
Well, I can easily see how a well-designed digital puzzle teaches a kid to be logical or persistent, but they also list traits like responsible and creative.
Right.
Honestly, my first reaction was that this is pure marketing fluff. How on earth can a mobile application teach a child something as profoundly abstract and, deeply human as responsibility?
I had the exact same skepticism. It sounds like they're overpromising.
I thought so too, until I dug into the specific game prototypes they use as evidence.
The Coin Quest example.
Yes.
Right.
They cite a game called Coin Quest. The surface level objective looks like it's just teaching kids to identify and count different coins.
Just basic math.
But the actual mechanical goal of the game is to teach that currency represents finite choices and intrinsic value.
Oh, wow.
The player is placed in scenarios where they have limited resources and must make strategic trade-offs. The software doesn't give them a quiz on responsibility. It simply enforces consequence.
Which is how life works.
Exactly. If you spend your digital coins on something frivolous early in the level, you won't have the resources to solve the critical puzzle later on. The environment naturally selects for and rewards responsible decision-making.
So they are reverse engineering the curriculum.
Yes.
They start with the human trait they want to foster, responsibility, or logical persistence. And they build the physics of the game world around enforcing that trait.
Exactly. And to pull that off, particularly with traits like persistence, you have to fundamentally change the way the software handles failure.
And Bornfab's entire philosophy on failure, principles 5, 6, and 7, hinges on removing the emotional weight of being wrong.
Which is huge.
It is. In a traditional classroom, getting an answer wrong carries a heavy penalty. It comes with red ink, a lower grade, and sometimes public embarrassment.
Yeah, and the child's internal monologue immediately becomes, I am bad at this, or I got it wrong.
Which triggers that cognitive wall we talked about earlier.
Precisely.
Bornfab games are designed to treat failure purely as neutral data. The emotional goal is to shift that internal monologue from, I failed to, oh, I see why that specific move didn't work.
It's reframing the whole experience.
Yeah, they rely on a psychological concept called productive challenge.
Okay, Think about the last time you played a really engaging video game or even sat down with a challenging Sudoku puzzle.
Sure.
If the puzzle's too easy, your brain shuts off and you get bored. If it's absurdly difficult and you can't make any progress, you get frustrated and throw the book across the room.
Right, you just quit.
But there is a sweet spot right in the middle, that productive challenge, where you are failing, but the feedback is so clear that your inner monologue is constantly whispering, wait, let me try one more time. I'm getting closer.
That state of flow is exactly what Bornfab is trying to capture. And applying that flow state to something universally dreaded brings us to our second source document.
The case study.
Yes, the specific case study of their game weight balance. This game specifically targets the logical and persistent thinking DNA traits and takes aim at the most notoriously frustrating subject in early education.
Mathematics.
Mathematics.
The playbook makes a fascinating diagnosis of why traditional math education fails so many people.
What do they say?
We teach math as an abstract language of disembodied symbols. Kids learn the mechanical algorithm for carrying the 1 or borrowing from the tens column, but they have zero intuition for why those algorithms work.
They are just manipulating symbols on a piece of paper. It is entirely disconnected from physical reality.
To me, it is the equivalent of forcing a child to memorize the script of a play in a language they do not speak.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it.
Thanks. I mean, sure, with enough rote repetition, they can recite the syllables perfectly, they can perform the calculation, but they have no idea what the story is actually about.
Right.
Weight balance completely upends that. Instead of staring at an equation on a whiteboard, the child is interacting with a highly responsive physical balance scale on their screen.
It changes the fundamental question the child is trying to answer.
How so?
When a student looks at a written equation, their brain asks, what is the answer the teacher wants? But when a child looks at a physical balance scale, their brain naturally asks, why is this behaving this way? How does this physical system work?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break down the exact progression of how that works, because the design document outlines a very deliberate 5-step learning journey that happens on this digital seesaw.
Let's go through it.
What does this actually look like for a user?
So, step 1 is simply observe. The child drops into the game and notices that when different objects are placed on either side of the scale, the balance reacts. The physics engine is hyper-realistic. The playbook notes that curiosity is triggered immediately.
Because the brain automatically registers the movement and asks, why did it tip?
Exactly. Which leads right into step 2, which is experiment.
So they just start messing around.
Yeah, the kid just starts throwing digital blocks onto the scale. They are trying different combinations. A big block here, 3 small blocks there.
And going back to what we discussed about failure, when the scale tips the wrong way, there is no buzzer. There is no big red X on the screen.
No.
The mistake is just a physical reality of the game world. It is purely an act of exploration.
And that exploration inevitably triggers step 3, which is discover.
That sounds like the light bulb moment.
It is. This is the critical moment where the child begins to recognize underlying patterns. They might notice that 2 small blue blocks always equal the weight of 1 large red block.
Or they realize that if the scale is perfectly balanced and they remove an identical block from both sides, the scale remains perfectly balanced.
Yes. They're discovering the foundational axiom of algebraic equality without ever hearing the word algebra.
That's incredible.
As the playbook eloquently states, the balance always tells the truth.
It is immediate, undeniable, visual feedback. And once they start seeing those patterns, they hit what Bornfab considers the major milestone of the game. Step 4, which is predict.
Prediction is the cognitive bridge between random guessing and true logical reasoning.
Right.
Before they even drag a block onto the scale, the child pauses and thinks, if I add this weight over here, what will happen to the other side?
So they are running a complex mental simulation based entirely on the physics rules they organically discovered in step 3.
Exactly, which culminates in step 5, understand.
The final step.
Yes. The child isn't guessing anymore. They aren't relying on a memorized rule. They possess genuine, deeply rooted mathematical intuition.
You know, the beauty of this 5-step progression, observe, experiment, discover, predict, understand, is that it is an exact mirror of the scientific method.
Oh, observation, hypothesis, experimentation, conclusion.
Yes. They are essentially tricking 7-year-olds into operating as empirical scientists, using basic mathematics as their laboratory.
It is a brilliant system.
It is, but I have a practical objection here.
Okay, let's hear it.
A kid doesn't stay 7 years old forever. Once you figure out the basic physics of a seesaw, The mystery is gone. Doesn't this game just become incredibly boring after a few hours?
That is a fair point.
How do they keep an older kid engaged without just falling back on, testing them with bigger and bigger numbers?
That is addressed in the cognitive progression section of the document, and it is crucial to understanding Bornfab's philosophy. To maintain that productive challenge, the game is designed to grow dynamically with the user.
Okay, so how do they do that?
They don't just speed up a countdown timer or throw four-digit numbers at the player to artificially inflate the difficulty. They deepen the actual type of thinking required to solve the puzzle.
Walk me through what that looks like. How does a level for a 6-year-old differ from a level for an 11-year-old?
Well, at the entry level, ages 6 to 7, the cognitive focus is purely on comparing quantities. The puzzles ask the child to recognize what is heavier or lighter, explore simple equality, and practice one-to-one correspondence by counting objects.
Very tactile and direct.
Exactly.
Okay, so foundational physics and counting. What happens when they turn 8 or 9?
The environment introduces ambiguity. For the 8 to 9-year-old tier, the challenges require predicting outcomes with multiple variables. The game stops giving them puzzles with only one correct answer.
But that's interesting.
Yeah, instead, the child might be presented with an unbalanced scale and a limited inventory of odd weights. They have to recognize that there are multiple valid combinations that will achieve balance, which forces them to evaluate efficiency and alternative strategies.
So they are learning that there isn't just one right way to solve a problem. That is a massive conceptual leap.
And by ages 10 to 11, the training wheels come completely off.
What happens then?
The puzzles evolve into multi-step, abstract challenges. A 10-year-old might face a scenario where they have 3 different scales, all interacting with each other.
Oh, wow.
If you change a weight on scale A, it affects the equilibrium of scale C. They have to isolate variables, think several steps ahead, and most importantly, the game requires them to input the logical justification for their decision before the physics engine resolves the outcome.
They are doing simultaneous equations.
Pretty much.
When you lay it out like that, it's incredibly impressive. But if I put myself in the shoes of a parent reading about this, or like a skeptical school teacher, I immediately have concerns.
Sure.
And the playbook's marketing and FAQ section actually anticipates this pushback.
What is the primary concern they address?
The obvious one. Does playing a digital seesaw game replace formal school math?
And the answer?
Bornfab's answer is a definitive no. The game is not a replacement. It is an intuitive primer.
Right, it's foundational.
Exactly. The goal is to build such a strong physical and visual intuition for equality and balance that when the child eventually sits in a middle school classroom and the teacher writes an abstract algebraic equation on the whiteboard, the child's brain has a concrete physical reference point to anchor that abstract concept.
The other major skepticism they tackle is whether this is only effective for kids who already have a natural affinity for puzzles or math.
And what did they find?
The data in their playbook suggests the exact opposite. This discovery-based method is actually most effective for children who suffer from severe math anxiety.
Really?
Yeah, by removing the ticking clock, the red ink, and the pressure of a formal quiz, it strips away the fear of failure that usually paralyzes them.
I buy all of that, but I still see a massive glaring flaw in their business model.
Where is the flaw?
Specifically regarding Principle 4, the invisible learning rule.
Okay, walk me through your thinking.
If Bornfab does its job perfectly, the learning is so seamlessly invisible that the kid genuinely just thinks they're playing a fun physics game about balancing blocks.
Right.
If that is true, what happens when a parent walks through the living room, glances at the iPad, and sees their kids staring at a screen balancing digital rocks? They are going to assume it is just mindless junk food screen time.
I see.
If the parents think the app is empty entertainment, they cancel the subscription. How does Bornfab survive its own success?
That is the exact tension the designers tackle in the What Parents Should See section of the playbook.
So they saw this coming.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They know they have to bridge the gap between invisible play and visible value. The game is meticulously structured so that while the mechanics look like play, the parent actively witnesses profound behavioral changes in their child in real time.
What kind of behavioral changes? Because a kid staring quietly at a screen doesn't usually scream cognitive breakthrough.
Well, the parent doesn't just see a quiet kid. They see a child encountering failure and handling it differently.
Okay, that's fair.
They see their child try a solution, watch the digital scale tip the wrong way, and instead of throwing a tantrum or rage quitting the app, the child pauses, analyzes the feedback, and calmly tries a new strategy.
So they are witnessing the physical manifestation of independent reasoning and persistence.
Exactly. And even more deliberately, as the cognitive progression scales up, the game's difficulty naturally prompts the child to begin explaining their reasoning out loud.
So the kid starts talking to themselves.
Yeah. A parent walking by will hear their 8-year-old muttering, okay, I can't put the heavy block here because those 2 blue blocks over there are going to pull the left side down.
Wow.
The parent isn't looking over their shoulder at a graded math worksheet. They are listening to their child spontaneously articulate complex logical deductions.
Which proves the learning is actually happening. And that ties perfectly into what Bornfab considers their ultimate overarching goal.
Principle 10.
Yes, Principle 10 is the metric by which they judge all their products. It states that learning must transfer beyond the game. The playbook is brutally honest about this. They write, if the learning stays inside the screen, the design has failed.
They do not measure success by daily active users or how many minutes a day a child is glued to their app. Ultimate success is measured by whether that child closes the iPad, walks out into the real world, and approaches physical problems with more curiosity, clearer logic, and better decision-making skills.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you are trying to help a 7-year-old understand fractions, or you are a professional trying to master a new coding language or leadership skill, Bornfab and the weight balance case study prove a really powerful point about human cognition.
They really do.
True. Lasting mastery does not come from forcing yourself to memorize the what. It comes from giving yourself the grace and the space to be intensely curious, to experiment in an environment where failure is just data, and to organically uncover the why behind how things work.
We have spent this entire deep dive examining how children learn best through consequence-free experimentation, invisible discovery, and productive challenge. But I want you to apply this lens to your own life.
Right.
Think about the adult world. Why is it that our corporate training programs, our onboarding processes, and our daily professional development courses look exactly like the rote, uninspiring digital worksheets that Bornfab so aggressively outlaws?
It's a great point.
If we have the psychological data proving that the human brain is wired to thrive on discovery and play, when did we collectively decide that adults are supposed to stop playing and just read the manual?
That is a phenomenal question and one absolutely worth carrying with you into your next meeting or your next learning challenge.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us for episode 2 of our deep dive series. We hope this exploration into invisible learning changes the way you approach your own curiosity. Until next time, keep experimenting, keep asking why, and keep playing.
End screen time battles today. Download Bornfab on the App Store and Google Play.